You ever have one of those days where you're just sitting there, minding your own business, and then all hell breaks loose right on your front lawn? Because that's exactly what happened to me, except my version included 3 squad cars, flashing lights spinning like it was some kind of twisted carnival, and my little sister, who survived 2 tours in Afghanistan, standing in the middle of it all, hands cuffed behind her back like she was some kind of war criminal. If you've never seen a war vet in handcuffs on soft, freshly cut grass, mixed with the smell of diesel exhaust, and that cold metallic clack of handcuffs, I gotta say, it'll stick with you. That sound, man. You feel it in your teeth. Her so-called crime? HOA President Delilah Hartwell, self-appointed Empress of Artificial Perfection, decided my sister was conducting illegal military surveillance on our precious little suburban street. Yeah, let that one sit with you for a second. A decorated vet, in cuffs, for surveillance. It still sounds stupid, even saying it out loud. But I guess when you hand someone a clipboard and a laminated rule book, some folks just start to think they're running a whole country. Delilah, God, where do I start, was the kind of person who could turn a neighborhood rulebook into a weapon. But she made a mistake that day. She had no idea my sister's military specialty was, well, something that could turn her suburban kingdom into a federal crime scene in about 10 minutes flat. Looking back, what started out as run-of-the-mill neighborhood harassment turned into something a whole lot bigger. Bigger, and a hell of a lot messier. And honestly, if your own neighborhood turned on a veteran, if folks you'd known for years started treating your family like a threat, what would you do? Ever think about that? I wish I hadn't had to. But here we are. Let me back up for a second. Give you the lay of the land. My name's Marcus Donovan. I'm 34, work tech support from home, living in a modest little 3-bedroom ranch out in Willowbrook Commons. The kind of place where every house looks just like the last, right down to the identical shade of desert sage on the siding. They say it's supposed to feel welcoming. Honestly, sometimes it just feels like you're living in a model train set. Everything's regulated. Mailboxes, regulation beige. Lawns, regulation length. We even have an artificial creek, plastic ducks included. I'm pretty sure those fake ducks cost more than I spend on groceries in a month. You can actually smell the HOA compliance. There's this weird mix of landscaping mulch, chlorine from the pool, and just fear. Fear of stepping out of line. 3 weeks before my sister ended up on my lawn in handcuffs, she'd come to stay with me. Her name's Reese, though she goes by Ree. She was 28 at the time, just home from the Army. She'd been medically discharged after an IED blast scrambled her brain, left her with PTSD. Fireworks, thunderstorms, anything like that, and she'd flinch like it was incoming fire. You want to talk about guilt? Try living in a house with blackout curtains and a white noise machine running 24/7 because your sister gets jumpy at the sound of the neighbor's kid setting off a bottle rocket. Meanwhile, I'm just over here binge-watching Netflix, complaining about my Wi-Fi speed, while she was out in the desert dodging actual mortars. It keeps me up sometimes, thinking about that. Anyway, our HOA, it's like a mini North Korea. $85 a month in dues, rules and guidelines thicker than a college textbook, and 47 residents who've learned the best way to survive is to keep your head down. Every Tuesday, right on the dot at 9 a.m., the whole place comes alive. Leaf blowers, lawnmowers, the works. It's like synchronized swimming, but with gasoline and earplugs. And the pool? Chlorine, so strong it'll burn your nose hairs off. At the center of it all, Delilah Hartwell. If you can picture a 52-year-old insurance claims adjuster with a blonde bob so perfect it defies physics, and an attitude that would make a DMV clerk seem warm, that's her. She's always got her clipboard, acrylic nails, tapping on it like a little war drum. Drives a white Lexus that gleams like it's sponsored by some car wax company. You can hear her coming from 3 blocks away. Heels clicking, nails tapping, that vanilla perfume announcing her like a warning siren. What makes Delilah dangerous isn't just the rules. It's that she's figured out how to turn paperwork into a weapon. She knows every loophole, every technicality. 3 years as HOA president and she could spot a code violation from a moving vehicle. And she didn't mind using all that as a way to single out folks who didn't fit her vision. Day 3 of Reese's stay, Delilah shows up at my front door. She doesn't knock. She materializes, seriously, like a bad rash. First thing I notice is the vanilla perfume, then the clipboard. Your guest, she says, spitting the word out like it's dirty, has violated our 7-day visitor policy. Extended stays require written HOA approval, comprehensive background check, and a $50 processing fee. She tries to look past me into the house, eyes narrowing like a detective looking for clues. I tell her, probably too nicely, that Reese isn't a guest. She's my sister. She's family, just out of the military, recovering. Big mistake. Her eyes light up like a slot machine on a jackpot. Military personnel attract certain elements, she whispers, as if the NSA is listening in from a van outside. Drug dealers. Criminals. You know the type. People who exploit PTSD veterans. She says these people, and something about it just makes my skin crawl. But what do? Do I tell her to get lost? No. I try to reason with her. Dumb. Rookie mistake. I hadn't figured out yet that Delilah's insurance training had basically made her a black belt in psychological warfare. She could make your life miserable and still look like she was protecting property values. Every conversation with her was like getting pecked to death by ducks, tiny little wounds, adding up. Meanwhile, Ree is making phone calls. Lots of them. Using military lingo I don't even pretend to understand. Packages start showing up from places called Tactical Intelligence Solutions, Federal Compliance Consulting. Every time I ask about it, she just shrugs. Communications and surveillance. You know, Army stuff. Then she'll change the subject. Neighbors start splitting into camps. Some whisper to me, "Sorry, man, but Delilah's dangerous. You should be careful." Others buy into her whole narrative about veterans being unstable, ticking time bombs. And I'm left feeling like we're up against more than just a nosy neighbor. We're up against someone who turned her bias into policy. And she was just getting started. Day 8, things get serious. Doorbell rings. I open it to find a postal worker holding a certified letter, so thick it could stop a bullet. Willowbrook Commons, HOA, urgent compliance matter. Just seeing that return address made my hand sweat. I open it, and I swear Delilah must have been up all night with a thesaurus and a legal dictionary. Accusations flying everywhere. Unauthorized vehicle registration. Apparently Reese's military-issue truck was ruining the aesthetic harmony. Noise violations, her 6 a.m. runs, combat boots on pavement, supposedly acoustic terrorism. But the kicker? Unauthorized military equipment storage visible from public spaces. She'd attached photos of what she claimed was potential weapons cache. It was resistance bands and foam rollers. I actually snorted coffee when I saw that. But then I stopped laughing. The photos showed the inside of my house. Angles you couldn't get from the street. Someone had been trespassing, taking pictures through windows, maybe even stepping onto my property. Deadline, 48 hours, or face $500 a day in fines. That's the kind of money that can break you. Panic set in hard. I stayed up till 2 a.m., neck deep in printouts, legal statutes, HOA bylaws, federal disability protections. Paper cuts on every finger. At one point, I just sat there staring at the wall, wondering if I was in over my head. Then I remembered something from my cousin's lawsuit. HOAs don't get to override federal law. The Americans with Disabilities Act? It doesn't just trump HOA rules, it steamrolls them. What Delilah was calling weapons was actually adaptive equipment, prescribed by the VA, federally protected. She wasn't just making up rules, she was breaking real laws. I drafted a letter, not just a response, a full-on counterattack. Laid out all the ADA statutes, included timestamps on her trespassing, called out the pattern of harassment, Even CC'd the state regulatory board. Maybe I was overdoing it, but honestly, it felt good to finally have some ammunition of my own. Meanwhile, Ree was a ghost in the house, moving quietly, making more of those cryptic calls. Every so often, she'd jot something down in this little black notebook. I started to realize she wasn't just passing time. She was working. Every conversation with a neighbor turned into some kind of intel gathering mission, asking about past violation notices, who'd been targeted, how much they'd been fined. Our next-door neighbor, Mrs. Olivia, sweetest old lady, makes dumplings that could end wars, quietly told us she'd been fined $300 for ethnic cooking odors, and another time for foreign language violations. Apparently, speaking Mandarin on your own porch in Delilah's kingdom was a crime. When I told Ree, she just nodded and made another note. All the while, Delilah's patrols got more intense. Heels clicking, camera shutters snapping. Phone calls whispered behind hydrangea bushes. You'd think we were being watched by the CIA. But the thing is, Ree didn't seem bothered. If anything, she seemed amused. She'd start timing her runs to coincide with Delilah's patrols, making herself more visible, even waving at the camera sometimes. When I finally asked her why, she just said, "In the military, we call this drawing fire. Sometimes you want the enemy to reveal their position." She had this weird little smile. Not the one I remembered from before she left for Afghanistan. Something sharper, almost dangerous. One night, Jake Rodriguez, guy from down the street, wife and 2 kids, always invites us to his 4th of July party, corner me during a walk. Look, man, I support veterans. But Delilah's shown my wife photos of your sister's equipment. She's scared. Are we safe? His voice shook. He wasn't angry, just scared. And that scared me more than if he'd yelled. I explained about the VA equipment, the therapy, the PTSD. He nodded, but I could see the worry hadn't left his eyes. Delilah's poison was working its way through the neighborhood. Little by little, people stopped saying hi. Invitations to cookouts dried up. You could feel it, something ugly settling in. And that's when things really started to spiral. So, by the time we hit week 2, I was running on equal parts rage and caffeine. My coffee started tasting like pure stress. I'd walk around with this knot in my gut, half expecting another certified letter or one of Delilah's surprise wellness checks. You ever get that sense that someone's watching you, even when you're inside your own house? That was my life, all day, every day. Day 15, things hit a new low. I was still in my boxers, trying not to burn my eggs, when somebody pounded on the front door like they had a warrant. I peeked through the peephole. There's Officer Rodriguez from down the street, looking like he'd rather be anywhere else. And, right behind him, Delilah, practically vibrating with excitement. Death gripping her clipboard like it's a ticket to the Oscars. "Morning, Marcus," Officer Rodriguez says, using that tired, polite voice cops use when they're forced to deal with suburban nonsense. "We got a wellness check request for your sister. Somebody's reported erratic military behavior." Delilah's standing just behind him, trying to eavesdrop, clicking her nails like she's counting down to my execution. "Erratic behavior?" I ask. "She goes for a run every morning and does physical therapy." That's it. I'm trying not to lose it, but I can feel my voice rising. Delilah steps up, eyes all big and righteous. 6 a.m. reconnaissance missions through our community, Marcus. Military-grade fitness equipment. We have children here, families who deserve to feel safe. She's saying this like Ree's out there building foxholes in the cul-de-sac. Officer Rodriguez glances at his notes. "Look, I have to follow up on reports. But honestly, your sister seems fine. She was polite, showed me her VA docs, explained her medical needs. Everything checks out." You better believe I was ready. I had a folder stuffed with Reese's VA paperwork, disability certification, even her proof of residence. All cross-referenced, signed, dated. Learned that from my cousin's disability case. Rodriguez flips through it, nods, gives Delilah a look that could curdle milk. Ma'am, filing false reports is a misdemeanor. If this becomes a pattern, he leaves it hanging. But everyone knows what he means. Delilah, for once, doesn't have a snappy comeback. She just sort of withers, retreats down my front path like she's lost her keys and her dignity somewhere in the grass. After they leave, Ree comes out, looking a little more distant than usual. She checks her watch, like she's running some secret schedule. 47 minutes after my morning run, she mutters. She's getting predictable. And that's when she finally tells me. Her Army specialty wasn't just communications. She was an intelligence analyst. Her job? Surveillance detection and counterintelligence. I tracked patterns, built profiles, documented threats. Overseas, sometimes it was the only way to keep our unit alive. I just stare at her. You mean like what Delilah's doing to us? She cracks a cold smile. Exactly like that. Only I'm better at it. She shows me her work. No kidding, a file that would make a federal agent blush. Photos of Delilah sneaking around, timestamps, lists of every complaint she'd filed, every suspicious email, logs of weird conversations, neighbors she'd pressured, even patterns in the timing of Delilah's letters and patrols. Reese had basically mapped Delilah's entire playbook. See, in intelligence work, you give the target enough rope, they'll hang themselves. She's building a case against us, but she doesn't know she's building a better case against herself. Meanwhile, Delilah is starting to get sloppy. Maybe she's rattled. She sends out a mass email to the whole neighborhood, urgent security concerns, but accidentally CCs me. The way she writes unstable veterans, property value threats, maintaining community standards, it's basically coded language for keep out anyone different. It's ugly, and it's getting worse. The neighborhood is officially divided. Jake Rodriguez doesn't know what to believe. His wife's scared. His brother, the cop, says we're harmless. Mrs. Olivia quietly brings over dumplings and her own stories of Delilah's harassment. Fined for the wrong color curtain, for talking to her granddaughter in Mandarin. The Sanchez family stopped putting up holiday decorations because Delilah kept citing them for unauthorized displays. Mr. Peterson, the old man across the street, got a warning for excessive mobility aid noise. His walker squeaks, that's it. Reese stays calm, quietly collecting stories, organizing everything. In the military, we call this gathering intelligence before engagement. The enemy always slips up when they think they're winning. She calls in favors from her old unit, people who work in regulatory compliance now. The federal government, she tells me, doesn't like it when people harass veterans, especially when there's documentation. I start to taste it, the possibility of real justice. It's weird, but it makes the coffee a little sweeter. Day 22. Delilah moves to financial warfare. I get another certified letter, thick as a phone book. Notice of violations and financial penalties. $1,200 in fines for violations like unauthorized satellite dish, which is actually Reese's telehealth setup, improper window coverings, doctor-prescribed blackout curtains, and unauthorized commercial activity. Reese taking online college courses, paid for by the GI Bill. I've got 10 days to pay up, or they'll put a lien on the house. That kind of pressure? It's not just money. It's psychological warfare, plain and simple. But here's the thing. Delilah's playing checkers, and Reese is playing chess. I've learned from my cousin's lawsuit. When an HOA's harassment targets a protected group, veterans, disabled people, minorities, it stops being just an HOA problem. It becomes a federal problem. And when multiple residents face similar harassment, it can turn into a class action. Mrs. Olivia, over another batch of dumplings, tells me, I paid my fine because I didn't want trouble. But this woman, she picks on everyone different. You, me, Mr. Peterson. Suddenly, it clicks. Delilah isn't just targeting us. She's systematically weeding out anyone who doesn't fit her narrow vision of community. That's when I started documenting everything, talking to neighbors, collecting stories. Mr. Peterson, the Sanchez family, even Tom across the street, who got fined for parking his work truck in his own driveway. The more I looked, The more I realized, this was bigger than just us. Meanwhile, Ree's gathering evidence at a whole other level. Financial documents, surveillance photos, logs of Delilah's movements. She's built a timeline, charting every fine, every complaint, every suspicious transaction the HOA has made in the last 3 years. What she finds? Well, that's when my blood started boiling. Hartwell Property Solutions. Turns out, that's Delilah's brother-in-law's company. Guess who's been billing the HOA for maintenance that never actually happens? Landscaping that was done by volunteers, pool cleaning for a pool that's barely used, structural inspections for buildings that don't exist. $23,000 in invoices over 2 years. In intelligence work, you always follow the money, Reese says. Paper trails don't lie. And when they cross state lines, they become federal jurisdiction. At this point, Delilah is getting desperate. She tries framing us for vandalism. Broken sprinkler heads, trashed mailboxes, always after Reese's physical therapy sessions. It's so obvious, it's almost funny. But she makes her biggest mistake yet. She puts everything in writing. Emails to neighbors talking about undesirable elements and protecting our community from military instability. The neighborhood barbecue turns into an awkward diplomatic summit. Folks huddle in little clumps, whispering, picking sides. Jake corners me by the potato salad. My wife's scared. My brother says you guys are solid. This whole thing's tearing us apart. I show him the documents, Mrs. Olivia's fines, Sanchez's citations, all of it. He stares at them for a long time, then just shakes his head. Ree, through all of this, keeps her cool. I find her one night, making notes in her little black notebook, just documenting the final phase before engagement. My report's almost done. I just need one more confirmation about federal jurisdiction. The coffees never tasted sweeter. And then, one Tuesday morning, it happens. Ree comes out of her room with a folder thick enough to stop a bullet, lays it on the kitchen table, and says, "Marcus, remember when I said I specialized in communications? That wasn't the whole truth." Turns out my little sister, who I thought I knew, spent 3 years overseas tracking financial crimes. Money laundering, contract fraud, corruption. She'd followed paper trails through fake companies, shell accounts, kickbacks. Exactly what Delilah's doing, she says, flipping open the folder, just on a much smaller, sloppier scale. And now it's a federal case. There it was. $23,000 in fake charges, invoices for maintenance in a neighborhood where the plants are plastic. Contractor payments lining up with luxury vacations. Her brother-in-law's mortgage magically paid off the same week the HOA cut another check. Reese traced every penny. This is mail fraud, Marcus. This is wire fraud. This is how people go to federal prison. That's when I realized this wasn't just about standing up to Delilah. This was about taking down a whole rotten system. And I wasn't alone anymore. From that day on, our little house became more like a command center than a home. The garage turned into a war room. Coffee cups everywhere. Stacks of paperwork on the workbench. Reese's laptop running spreadsheets and flowcharts. Mrs. Olivia dropping by with snacks and information like some kind of undercover agent in a cozy cardigan. I kept expecting someone to walk in with a corkboard and red string. Our team was weird, but it worked. Me on tech, Reese running ops, Mrs. Olivia quietly connecting with every neighbor who'd ever felt the sharp end of Delilah's clipboard. Jake Rodriguez got involved too, reluctantly at first. He started comparing maintenance records with his own contractor knowledge and quickly realized Delilah's invoices were, well, total fiction. Then Officer Rodriguez began giving us tips on what counted as actionable harassment. Even our VA legal aid attorney, Maria Santos, started showing up after Reese's case caught her eye. "This isn't just about one family," Maria said, flipping through a stack of documentation. "This is systematic fraud, discriminatory enforcement, exactly the kind of case the feds love." Reese broke down the legal strategy like a military campaign. Fraud for the financial stuff, civil rights violations for the discrimination, state-level complaints for the HOA breaches. Every time Delilah tried a new move, we had a counter ready. Witness statements, photo evidence, violation logs, emails, all organized, cross-referenced, and digitally backed up about 6 different ways. I was running encrypted drives and cloud backups like we were prepping for a cyber war. Maria explained the next level. HOA board members aren't just volunteers, they're fiduciaries. If they commit fraud or discriminate, they can lose their own assets, not just get kicked out. That was when the tide started to turn. Word spread. More neighbors came forward. Tom down the street had 2 years' worth of parking violations for his work truck and had paid more than $1,000. The Sanchez family brought out faded photos of their kids' holiday lights, which Delilah claimed were unauthorized cultural displays. Even the quiet couple on the corner found out they'd been overcharged for premium landscaping that consisted of some dying bushes and 2 bags of mulch. Reese started running little seminars at the house, teaching folks how to document harassment, take time-stamped photos, record conversations legally, all that stuff. She set up a group chat for anyone being targeted. The air in Willowbrook changed. You could feel people waking up. But Delilah didn't go quietly. She doubled down. More inspections, more threats. If you talked to us, you got a letter. If you showed up at Mrs. Olivia's for tea, you got cited for unauthorized gathering. Jake's wife got a warning for excessive vehicle noise after her minivan idled for 3 minutes. Delilah even started spreading rumors about Reese, calling her a dangerous military extremist in hushed conversations at the pool. Her brother-in-law started asking for cash payments, no more paper trail. That just made Reese and Maria grin. You can run, but the IRS always finds you, Maria joked. Delilah didn't laugh. The technical side became my job. I digitized everything: violation letters, financial records, email chains. We built a searchable database that made it easy to track patterns. And patterns: there were disproportionate fines on veterans, minorities, the elderly, anyone Delilah saw as different. Over 3 years, Reese tallied nearly $47,000 in fraudulent charges. Meanwhile, media started sniffing around. One of Jake's buddies ran a local news blog. Soon, a couple of TV vans parked at the community entrance, cameras at the ready. Delilah tried to spin it as military infiltration. She sent a letter to every house. We must stand strong against dangerous elements. By that point, nobody was buying it except for her 2 closest friends, who, as it turned out, both had no violations on their records for years. With every move Delilah made, she just created more evidence. Documented everything. The rumors, the property damage, even fresh garbage bags she hadn't put in our bins. Delilah trying to plant evidence for the police to find. False flag operations, Reese called it. I called it crazy. We planned our reveal carefully. Maria helped set up legal protections for everyone involved, so nobody could retaliate or file bogus lawsuits. All our evidence got submitted to the feds before we made anything public. Then we scheduled the next HOA meeting for the biggest room in the community center. Flyers went out. People showed up, almost everyone. And then Delilah snapped. She tried to call the police, again, claiming my sister was having some sort of breakdown, threatening to eliminate targets and complete her mission. She twisted military lingo out of context, trying to paint Reese as a ticking time bomb. But this time, Officer Rodriguez had seen enough. Reese handed him a flash drive full of audio recordings. Every interaction with Delilah, every threat she supposedly made. Rodriguez listened, shook his head, and told Delilah flat out, "If you file one more false report, you'll be facing charges yourself." She turned white as a sheet. For once, she was speechless. The final blow came a week later. Delilah sent out a manifesto-style email accusing us of veteran extremism, complete with photos of Reese's therapy equipment labeled weapons cache, and her college coursework, unauthorized military training. She even went to the news. But by then, reporters had started looking into her and found the fraud investigation was well underway. Reese finished her final call to her old military contacts. Documentation phase complete. Evidence submitted. Federal authorities engaged. Target eliminated through legal channels. I'd never seen her look so calm. When the day of the HOA meeting arrived, you could feel the tension in the air. Half the town was there. Local news set up cameras in the back. Maria stood by with a folder of legal documents, Mrs. Olivia sitting up front like a proud general. Delilah strutted in with her lawyer, wearing way too much perfume and looking like she still thought she could win. She started her speech about military threats and community safety, waving photos and paperwork like a prosecutor at a trial. But the mood in the room had shifted. People weren't scared anymore. They were angry. Then it was my turn. I laid out the facts, clear, simple, backed by documentation. ADA protections, fair housing law, the financial fraud, the pattern of discrimination. Delilah's jaw clenched tighter with every page. Maria passed out copies of the federal investigation letter. Then Reese took the floor, calm and steady, and presented a timeline of every violation, every fraudulent payment, every discriminatory action. She didn't raise her voice. She didn't have to. At the end, Maria explained the consequences. Board members are personally liable. There will be asset forfeiture. There will be restitution. And there will be change. That was the moment Delilah broke. First, she tried to claim it was all a setup. Then she tried to bargain. I'll resign, just don't press charges. Finally, she got angry, ranting about outsiders and conspiracies. But nobody was buying it. The vote to remove her passed almost unanimously. Her lawyer quietly packed up their things. For the first time in years, Willowbrook Commons felt like a real neighborhood again. And for the first time in months, I could breathe. After that night, everything moved fast. Like dizzyingly fast. The federal investigation didn't waste any time. Within a month, Delilah's bank accounts were frozen. Her brother-in-law's shady company was getting audited. And those piles of fraudulent invoices? Now part of a real-life FBI case. I never thought I'd see the day an HOA president got perp-walked out of a subdivision meeting. But, well, life's full of surprises. What hit me hardest, though, was the way people changed once the fear was gone. For so long, everyone tiptoed around, afraid of a violation letter, worried Delilah would show up with her clipboard and ruin your month. But after the vote, neighbors started reaching out to each other again. The Rodriguez kids started playing catch in the street. Mrs. Olivia hosted tea parties without worrying who'd see. The Sanchez family hung their flag on the porch. Nobody batted an eye. Reese kept busy, but in a different way. She helped Maria and Mrs. Olivia get the paperwork in order for restitution. She ran little how-to meetings at the community center, showing folks how to spot financial fraud, how to document harassment, how to stand up for yourself without painting a target on your back. She was good at it, too. Natural leader, even if she still never talked much about Afghanistan. She just got stuff done. I'll tell you something, though, we didn't walk away unscathed. None of us did. I spent weeks looking over my shoulder, half expecting a retaliation move. Some of the older neighbors were just plain exhausted. Jake said his marriage nearly broke from all the stress. Even Mrs. Olivia, tough as nails, started locking her doors at night for the first time in years. And Reese? I caught her staring at the backyard some nights, notebook in hand, jaw clenched like she was listening for mortars instead of cicadas. The federal case became news. Not just the local channel, but real headline news. Veteran outsmarts HOA Karen. Suburban fraud scheme busted. Reporters even showed up for interviews, wanting to know how we did it, like it was some kind of underdog movie. The truth is, we did it by surviving, documenting. We did it by refusing to let someone else define what community means. Then, 6 months later, Delilah pled guilty. 3 years in federal prison, full restitution. Her precious Lexus got seized, auctioned off to help pay back the residents she'd been robbing blind. And the restitution? $47,000 back to the HOA, which meant 18 months of zero dues for everyone. First time in a decade folks could breathe without worrying about money. We didn't stop there. Maria helped draft new bylaws, no more solo dictators, full transparency on spending, clear anti-discrimination policies with teeth. Jake joined the board, focusing on making sure every contract was legit. Mrs. Olivia became treasurer, with Reese helping her audit every single invoice. The community center actually got used, potlucks, birthday parties, a monthly coffee hour where people actually showed up to talk about real stuff. There were setbacks, sure. We had to deal with the mess Delilah left behind. Messed up records, old resentments, people slow to trust again. But every time it felt like too much, someone would step up. Sometimes it was me, sometimes Reese, sometimes the quiet couple who'd spent years trying not to be noticed. I won't lie, some days I missed the old peace and quiet, back before I knew what a fight was hiding under all that regulation beige. But then I'd see Mrs. Olivia's grandkids running through the sprinklers, hear Mr. Peterson laughing with his new walker, no more squeak fines, Marcus, or watch Reese teaching kids how to use a compass in the park, and I knew it was worth it. Life got real again. Messy, unpredictable, and so much better. One night, after one of those community dinners, Reese and I sat on the porch with mugs of strong coffee and a plate of leftover dumplings. The air was thick with summer, cicadas buzzing. She stared at the stars, then finally said, "Service doesn't end when you take off the uniform. You protect your people. That's the job." I looked at her, really looked at her. My sister, who'd survived war only to fight a different kind of battle, right here at home. "You did more than protect us," I said. "You gave us a reason to stand up, even the folks who never thought they could." She smiled, small but real. "You stood up too, Marcus. You all did." We sat there for a while, not saying anything. Sometimes silence is the best kind of company. The thing is, neighborhoods aren't made by rules or matching houses or perfect lawns. They're made by people willing to watch each other's backs, even when it's uncomfortable, even when it costs you sleep, money, maybe some friendships you thought would last forever. Sometimes you've got to make a little noise. Sometimes you've got to risk everything to remind folks what home really means. So that's what we did, and I'd do it all again. A year's passed now. Hard to believe, honestly. Some mornings I wake up and expect to see that white Lexus rolling by, Delilah at the wheel, clipboard ready to ruin my day. But the street's different now. You can tell just walking outside. There's noise, kids laughing, neighbors talking, music drifting from open garages on Saturday mornings. The kind of sounds you don't realize you've been missing until they're back. The money the HOA got back didn't just cover the dues. We used it to fix up the park, add ramps for folks who needed them, finally buy real ducks for the artificial creek, Reese's idea. "If we're going to have a fake creek," she said, "at least let the ducks be real." I think it was her way of proving something could change. Maybe her way of healing, too. Mrs. Olivia runs the budget now, and let me tell you, nothing gets past her. She started a scholarship fund for local veterans, paid for, in part, by the auction of Delilah's old Lexus. First year, it sent a kid named Luis to trade school. Next year, it'll be 2 more. Small thing, maybe, but it means a lot around here. The new board isn't perfect. There's still arguments. Some of them get heated. But the fights are honest. And when folks disagree, they do it face to face, not by sticking violation notices on your door in the dead of night. People have learned to speak up, to ask questions. Hell, I've learned to listen better, which wasn't exactly my strong suit before all this. Reese didn't stay forever. She found her next calling, working with a federal task force investigating HOA abuse across the state. I'm proud as hell of her, even though it means she's on the road more than she's home. She still checks in, sends texts about new cases, Sometimes just a photo of some wild "no parking" sign she finds on her travels. I think fighting this fight gave her a way to turn all that pain into something good. Not perfect, but good enough for now. Sometimes people ask me, "How did you do it? How did you take down someone like Delilah?" And the truth is, I didn't. We did. One neighbor at a time. One story at a time. Document everything. Don't let bullies write the narrative. Find your allies, even the quiet ones. Especially the quiet ones. There were costs, for sure. I lost a few friends, folks who didn't want to get involved or couldn't see past the old status quo. There were nights I couldn't sleep, worrying I'd made everything worse. I missed work deadlines, burned bridges at my job. My hands still shake sometimes when the doorbell rings unexpectedly. Old scars, I guess. But you know what? I got my community back. I got to see Mrs. Olivia teaching her grandkids to cook dumplings in the open air, no fear. I watched the Rodriguez kids race their bikes down the street without their mom running outside in a panic. I heard Mr. Peterson, stubborn old guy, speak up at a meeting and actually be heard. That stuff sticks with you. Reese is the real hero. She'd hate me saying that, but it's true. She turned a fight nobody thought we could win into a victory that mattered. She made us braver. And she reminded all of us, that the best way to fight for home isn't with anger or threats, but with facts, patience, and a whole lot of grit. Now, when I look out at my street, I don't see a row of identical houses. I see stories, real ones. Stories of loss, of stubbornness, of people getting pushed too far, and finally pushing back. I see a place where people learned that neighborhood means more than compliance. It means looking out for each other. It means giving a damn. So if you ever find yourself up against someone like Delilah, someone who thinks a little power makes them untouchable, don't give up. Document everything. Stand together. Know your rights. It's not easy, and it won't be clean. There will be scars. But I promise you, the fight is worth it. Because home is worth it. And sometimes, that's all the reason you need.